First Lady Melania Trump forced to squash an internet rumor that his son Barron was rejected from Harvard, which is why the president is doing all of this. Her office out with this statement to Fox. Barron did not apply to Harvard, and any assertion that he or that anyone on his behalf applied is completely false. Barron is pursuing a business degree at the NYU Stern School of Business. Luke, your reaction.
I remember whenever I was debating someone on the left over where I went to college, a four-year institution that I didn't go into student debt for and that did not accept any federal funds. I was criticized for that and told that I was an anti-academic because I chose a financial route that benefited me and one where the federal government was not putting its thumb on the scale. What Harvard is doing right now is saying we are entitled to the American people's tax dollars. That's not true. They are not entitled to these tax dollars, and they for years have skewed the scale of admissions. Some of these numbers right here, 56% admissions for African Americans, 31% for Hispanics, only 15% for whites, and 13% for Asian. This is racism by a different name, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, I'm with Luke Ball today. Luke, jump in.
Hey, Congressman, I actually find it ironic that just 2 months ago, the Senate was only proposing $4 billion in spending cuts when the House was proposing anywhere from 1.2 to 2 trillion in spending cuts. So what I'm hearing from you right now is that you might be open to spending cuts if the Senate sends that back. Is there a limit to how deep the House Republicans are wanting to go with these spending cuts, or are you going to evaluate that once it comes back from the Senate?
Well, we're going to evaluate it once it comes back from the Senate. And when President Trump came in the conference last week for 2 hours, we got into the weeds about this. And the president had a couple different points of focus that he wanted us to concentrate. And Medicare and Medicaid was it. He said, you know, we had two different versions in energy and commerce. We had one that was $300 to $400 billion, and we had another one that was $800 billion. But we wanted to make sure that Medicare and Medicaid was preserved very, very proper, where only illegals were going to be pulled. So we wanted to take care of the working class. And this was by the president's directive. So I think that if they bring things over from the Senate and they're reasonable, we're definitely going to be all ears, and we'll try to even have a greater and more better bill. And I think the whole conference is willing to have those conversations.
The thing is, a lot of people like to segment off California and write it off and say that's a far left blue state. But California is a petri dish for what the Democrats want to do to the rest of the country. So if you want to see what their plan is for maybe a future presidential administration, look no further than California, what they're doing in the state.
And by the way, isn't it interesting that effectively the House just voted down the clean energy requirements that California tried to impose on the rest of the country for that very reason, because the rest of the states stood up and said, no, we don't want to be forced to do something that California wants to do.
Well, Democrats would rather spend $10 million in focus groups at the Ritz-Carlton than spend 10 minutes in a Bass Pro Shop talking to real Americans, and that's the problem. They continue to spend money trying to figure out exactly what went wrong in the last election when the largest focus group was the results of the last presidential campaign. Seeing how Kamala Harris failed with the messaging, they have all of the data. They know what went wrong. And to your point, they're so focused on these pronouns, they're so focused on the language that they can't break away from. That's the problem. It's not that they don't know what went wrong. It's that they have to reconcile the fact that they know what went wrong with not wanting to change the direction of their party. The Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years, and Democrats are on track to beat that record. They're going to be in the wilderness for a long period of time.
Well, I mean, it's amazing that you've got, I think it's 3 different polls showing extraordinary positive results for President Trump, that the policies are working, people are happy with it, 50% say we're on the right track. Did any of that make the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post? Was it breaking news on NBC, CBS, or ABC?
So,
not a word.
Not a word. And I had to sort of laugh, but I think it's kind of sad this morning. I opened up my phone, and right there on Bloomberg, the same story they've been running for 7 days, Maria, where it says Asia's sell everything in the U.S. moment threatens $7.5 trillion in assets. And I thought, gosh, isn't that sad? Bloomberg is so desperate. The organization is so desperate to make the administration look bad because Mr. Bloomberg dislikes President Trump. So now all their editors are doing everything they can to the extent that they're running the same negative story 7 days in a row. It's amazing.
I did the same thing on Morningstar. I had to dig really deep under the headline and be like, consumers are confident. There's not been a pullback in spending. The U.S. labor market continues to add jobs at a stable pace. and we're keeping the balance of high employment and low inflation. I had to go like scroll down to the bottom under 15 ads to get to that point because they don't want it at the top headline.
So the media has still not learned its lesson, the legacy media.
Quick final thought real quick. Ron Johnson asked where are the rescissions. Russ Vought had an answer for him, $9 billion that he has, for the first time in history, been able to work the White House and appropriators in the House that they're trying to codify. So expect those rescissions packages to come up quickly. He just doesn't want them to go nowhere.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Russ Vought has said it.
Yes.